Hello, we're going to try to do a recorded lecture here on the topic of health campaigns. And so this is lecture one. I titled it, What About Health Campaigns? This is a book that I used to use in the class. It's a real vintage classic. It's called Making Health Communication Programs Work. It's from the National Cancer Institute and the CDC. And it defines health communication as the study and use of communication strategies to inform and influence individual and community decisions that enhance health. Two words there I want to draw your attention to is inform, and the second one is influence. And thinking about how do those two overlap, or are they two different things? Here's a quote from Marymount College, which I liked. A health campaign is a strategic effort to promote awareness and influence behaviors in a way that improves public well-being on a specific health issue. And we want to ask right from the top, what type of media does health campaigns appear in? And for that question, I want to give you a chance to think about as many different kinds of media as you can. So you can pause and come right back when you've thought of some. All right, we're back. Let's see what kind of ones I could come up with. So this is a poster. That's a common form. However, the poster is not the whole campaign, right? But it is what we would call a deliverable, or it's what we would call a material artifact of the campaign. And the March of Dimes is always started about polio, and they're a huge fundraising organization for polio research. Billboards is another place where we see these types of posters. So do we want to say a poster is a different type of media than a billboard? Yeah, I think we're talking right now about media channels. Newspapers, you can see ads in the newspapers, including health related. That's a trifold pamphlet. It's another tried and true format. Booklets, brochures, pamphlets, radio, TV, and computer. Nowadays, that's where we get a lot of information about health from. So, am I saying that health campaigns are just different types of media? No, I would say a health campaign is a strategic effort where people come together and they're trying to raise awareness. And they might use a variety of different media channels to get the message across. These are organizations that are involved in public health and have health campaigns of their own. So the World Health Organization, CDC, and American Public Health Association is the professional organization for public health professionals. So I wouldn't say that they themselves put out health campaigns, but yeah, no, they do. I've seen health campaigns from the APHA, and NACCHO. NACCHO is the National Association of County and City Health Officials. So this is the professional society organization for people that work in state and local health departments. And they have big conference at least once a year at the CDC. And then state health departments. I put New York State, but it could be all kinds of different state health departments, or city health departments, or municipality, county, etc. Then we have to look at the voluntary not-for-profit organizations, like the American Heart Association, not a government entity, but a nonprofit. that may get government funds, but they also fundraise among the community. The American Cancer Society is another big one, and there's tons of different organizations like these. These are some of the biggest ones. I put up the ALS Association, and ALS is, I wrote it down, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, after the celebrated first baseman of the Yankees who died at age 37. It's a neurodegenerative disease that causes paralysis. And what about walks? You hear about walks, Walk to Defeat ALS. Is that part of the campaign? I want to say, yeah, that's part of the campaign for fundraising to raise awareness, etc. Susan G. Komen is one of the big ones out there. Susan G. Komen was a woman who died of breast cancer in 1980, and her sister Nancy started this fundraising organization. So what is the purpose of a health campaign? Sometimes they say it's to raise awareness, to spread the word about risks. And I want to say, like, pull your coat, that's sort of like a beatnik term for, put you in the know, give you some street knowledge that's going to help you out in this life. And the other thing that campaigns are focused on is behavior change. And so we don't want to say, no, we're just giving you the information, you can do whatever you want with it. But let's face it, that these campaigns set out to influence people's behaviors and hopefully change behaviors for the better. And so what every campaign has or should have is like an action step that you want people to do, whether it's to go to a smoking cessation meeting, or to donate money to a campaign, or sign up to walk in one of these walks. That's what people want. Give people something to do in your campaign. So we want to think about health campaigns in more traditional ways, but we also want to think even more broadly, all the kinds of different ways that we could do a campaign. So one of these terms is edutainment. I'm sure you've heard that term. And as you can see from the portamento, it's a mixture of education and entertainment. Here's an example that a puppet named Cammy reduces the stigma of HIV/AIDS in Southern Africa. I also wanted to put up this sign that says silence equals death. And when we talk about health campaigns, this was one of the most powerful campaigns in history. And it was very grassroots. It wasn't done by the government, but it was done by grassroots, on a grassroots level, by the Gay Men's Health Crisis and other such groups. And they wanted to raise awareness about AIDS, and especially raise attention that this disease was really hitting the gay community hardest. This was back in the 1980s, 1990s. And they did demonstrations, and they did sit-ins, and they did die-ins, and they did all the kinds of things that activists do to raise awareness. And so we should think about health campaigns in that respect too, about raising awareness. And I definitely like the grassroots angle. But this isn't a message coming from above, from the government, to tell us what to do. It's actually us raising awareness about this issue, and maybe even telling the government what to do, that you should pay more attention to this issue, or you should do more research in this area. I believe that the activists back then had a strong effect on influencing policy decisions. And so here's another walk. Why not pair up a walk with a campaign? And this is the Philadelphia AIDS Walk poster. By the way, we're on the topic of unusual or outside of the box campaigns. And this is a movie that I saw that really interests me. It's about an artist, and what's her name? I'm trying to remember. The artist's name is Nan Golden, and she's a famous artist from way back. And apparently, she got injured, and the doctors put her on pain relievers, one of those really strong pain relievers that contained opiates. And I'm not sure if it was oxycodone or which one exactly. Anyways, as many people, this happens to many other people, she got hooked and then had a terrible time being strung out on this drug and almost died. And so what she did is she organized an art installation in the Guggenheim Museum. And so you can see over here, there's people dropping signs, 400,000 dead, shame on Sackler, 200 dead. Each day, take down their name. So the Sackler family is a very wealthy family from New York that owns Purdue Pharmaceuticals. And one of the things they've done with their money is dedicate, give money to museums, including the Guggenheim and the Met, and in exchange for having it named after their family. So they're trying to be benefactors of the arts, and indeed they have been big benefactors of the arts. However, they also make this highly addictive drug called OxyContin, and I recommend any documentary about this. It's really amazing about what the pharmaceutical industry can get away with. And they sent people out to talk about OxyContin as if it was this new wonder drug. There was no risk of addiction. And as a result, tons of people got hooked. And it's extremely destructive and deadly disease. The Beauty and the Bloodshed was about this installation. So at one point they dropped all these papers, all these leaflets from the top of the museum, and then they staged what's called a die-in. A die-in is basically where you lie on the ground and pretend to be dead. And that's an old school activist topic. So as we talk about health campaigns, let's not just think of them as official top-down campaigns, but also ones that generate from the bottom up. I'm just putting up some different images that I saw. Here's eat 3 vegetables and 2 fruits every day. Great advice. Be a health hero. June is Men's Health Month. That's good to know. So what are these? These are just to get us in the mood for health campaigns. Here's New York City Health and Hospitals. Unlock your right to health care with dignity. Unlock affordable options, affordable health services, and having your own doctor. This one, wow, this one's really intense. What breast cancer can look and feel like. So what do we have here? We have different lemons in an egg carton, and each one of them is modeled to resemble a certain symptom in breast cancer. Feeling a thick area, a bump, a growing vein, a dimple, etc., etc. So that's a poster that really gets into the nitty-gritty. And it's basically trying to inform women like, hey, if you see any of these, get it checked out. It might not necessarily be anything, and some of these changes are normal, but if it stays around, be smart, see a doctor. This is a guy that I follow, and I think he's really great. His name is Joel Bervell, and back when I first discovered him, he was a med student. He's a doctor now, and he makes TikTok videos about health. And so the headline says he brings racial disparities in medicine to light. One of the first videos that I saw by him was about pulse oximeters, you know, those things that go over your finger to tell your pulse. And he said that for people that have melanated skin, you can get a different reading than you would otherwise. And so this is a clear example of a racial disparity, because the device was designed for people with light colored skin and didn't really take into account that lots of people have darker skin, and you might get a different type of reading that wouldn't be as accurate. Joel Bervell, and I'm interested in anybody like Joel who's basically doing health communication. He's out there and he's getting followers. I'm sure there's incentives for him to do it, but he makes these nice short videos we should check out. When it comes to health campaign and advertising, for that matter, we want to talk about the commonalities between them. So this is a little bit about how we model communication. Most health campaigns, and including beyond health campaigns, just ads that we see, have this type of format. There's a source that is the person who's sending out the message. Then there's the message, that's the particular health campaign or advertisement. And then the receiver is the audience on the other end. So let's talk about this ad at a bus stop. So in a way, the source is the bus stop. That's where people are going to see it. Of course, we know that it's actually McDonald's that's the source. The message is this ad, anytime refreshment. And then who's the receiver for something like this? Who would be exposed to this? People at the bus stop. So this model goes a long way, and it's loosely based off the mathematical model of information, which was designed by Claude Shannon in the 40s and is used still today as a model for telecommunications. I just want to draw your attention to what might be missing from it. Notice the arrows are all pointing in this direction, right? It's a one-way model of communication. When I think of communication, I think of back and forth, interactive. So it was Media 1.0 was one way. Media 2.0 is more interactive. And we can come up with examples already. So we want to say that, maybe the telephone was an early example of two-way communications. You could say one thing, the other person is speaking back. That would be compared to, for example, the telegraph, where the telegraph message is sent out via Morse code, and then it's possible, if the receiver is equipped, to send a message back. Whereas we had Media 1.0 is primarily one way. I want to talk about posters, print ads, television ads, radio spots. Media 2.0 brought in this interactivity to it. And part of that is through social media. Social media is different because you can follow these influencers, but you can also comment on their videos. You can like their videos, And you can sort of participate in the content producing process. Here's Mental Health Awareness Month, supporting well-being on social media, and hashtag mental health. So hashtags are an amazing invention to get people to retweet things, or they can talk about their own mental health experience with that hashtag. Then you click on the hashtag and it shows you everybody that's using that hashtag in different ways. And with any luck, it'll send people back to the original makers of that hashtag who are running this campaign. In this case, it's called Break the Stigma, hashtag Break the Stigma. And here's, it says self-care is an everyone thing. Here's another one called Hear Her. And that reminds me of another famous hashtag, which is eluding me at the moment. I can't help but think it's modeled after Me Too, because it's short and catchy like that. The idea with Hear Her is that African American women can go to their providers and report symptoms and have them be dismissed. And there's been research done that finds it's a prevalent problem, and that a lot of the times doctors haven't been trained in the specific health issues facing African Americans. They're sort of trained on a generic model, and the generic model happens to be white. So look into that one too. Hear Her. So we're still on models, and I wanted to talk about another famous model of communication that is multi-directional. And so this is attributed to Osgood and Schramm, 1954. And what you see here is that arrows are going both directions, message to feedback. And on this side, we have encoder, interpreter, and decoder. So each unit in the interchange plays these roles, wears these different hats at various times. So at sometimes you're encoding a message of your own to send to the interlocutor. Sometimes you're decoding the message that they send back and interpreting what it is they said. So you still have the message, but you have this important component of the model, which is feedback. And source and destination trade off. They're both source and destination. Another rendition of the Osgood-Schramm model talks about really that what people bring is not just themselves as the source and receiver, but a whole field of experience with them. And that's everything they've been exposed to, everything that they know to be true or false. That's includes their values, and that can't help but influence the process. And so they call that field of experience. And somewhere these two fields of experiences are coming together around this message, and they're both using their own backgrounds to make sense of it. So we definitely want to say that this is what we mean by a two-way communication process. Now, I don't have a lot of time left over. I'm going to cut this off in about 5 minutes. But hopefully I can get into the theories of health campaigns a little bit. The theories of health campaigns are really the theories of health communication in general. And a lot of the theories that inform decisions on the individual level can be extrapolated to the population level and say, well, if an individual makes sense of health messages this way, that's got to be happening at a grand scale. So first I'm going to talk about some of the psychological or cognitive theories. And the first one is the trans-theoretical model. So you're going to hear me talk about the trans-theoretical model, which can be also known as stages of change. And trans-theoretical model can be abbreviated as TTM. And really what they're asking with this theory is everybody's in a different mindset, and not everybody's on the same mindset when it comes to making a change in their behavior. Some people are more ready than others. So I'd say the main question of stages of change, trans-theoretical model, is, are you ready? Are you ready for this? So I'm going to show you a simple rendition of this model, and then I'm going to take you through it. So the first stage in this model, this is a sequence model, and it posits that people go through different stages when it comes to changing their behavior. And not every behavior is problematic to the person. So there's people out there that say, yeah, I love smoking and it's never done me any harm. So pre-contemplation is where you haven't even, it hasn't really even occurred to you that there might be health effects down the road. So you're not worried about anything. That's followed by the next stage, which is called contemplation. So at some point you've been exposed to information about that there are health risks associated with this behavior, whether it's smoking or inactivity or too much sodium in your diet or going unvaccinated or not wearing a mask. And you're starting to think about it, although you haven't made the decision yet. The next stage is the planning stage. This is where you're really motivated to start. And in the planning stage, we're thinking, yeah, I really do need to make this change. I'm not quite ready, but I'm going to get set up to make the change. So imagine someone goes out and buys a yoga mat, or they go to Lululemon and they shop for an exercise outfit. That's someone who's definitely planning to make that change. So the next stage after that is called action, and that's where we are really going for it. So maybe it's something we've thought about, we're quitting smoking, now it's really something that we're going to do. And in the action stage, I showed a guy running, he's doing it, and then after that comes maintenance. And so maintenance is like staying on the beam, right? Now that we've made this change, is it really sustainable? Is it really something that we're going to incorporate into our routines, or are we going to give up pretty soon after? And this applies to everything from running to quitting smoking to quitting, alcohol or drugs. Maintenance, we find that we're really juggling a lot of different things. And we're coming up with sensations, we're cravings, and we're not able to satisfy those cravings in the same way that we used to. And so we have to seek and find new ways of managing that discomfort. The next inevitable stage is called relapse. And according to Stages of Change, TTM, there's always a place where we fall off the beam. And the point is that we don't worry about it too much. Here's an example of Homer was trying to lose weight, and now he's having a binge on various snack food products. And the point of that is not to give up, but to say, well, we really gave it a try, and now let's move on. And so thus the cycle continues. And the point is to keep, the point of a healthcare provider or a health communicator is to help the person keep cycling through these stages. And you don't get it on the first try. I think that's a good point to make about the stages of change model. And so this, like I said, this is a very influential model. And right now I'm going to sign off for today. But thank you for your attention. I'll see you on the next lecture.